Hey, so I was rearranging my sock drawer today when I got the thought that, hey, what makes comic art good or bad, and how do you choose a good artist, and how do you decide if you're buying good comic art or bad comic art, and will I ever be good enough at my comic art? Should I just stick to writing? Now, while I think I have all the answers, I would rather confirm my guesses from somebody with a British accent that can talk a little bit about art.
And then I kind of give it two rules to me. One is, does it say something? Is it about something? It may be about the color orange. It may be about the view in a landscape.
That's enough of that. Despite how pretentious this guy is, he actually has a really good point. So does it say something, and how effective does it do that something? And so I think that's a really good place to start. But let's face it, we're not looking at an art museum. That is just very basic, I think, more basic than comic art, because comic art is seeking to achieve a few other things. And that does it say something question is inherent in comic art already. It's supposed to be saying something because it's telling a story. So you also have to look at how effectively it can tell a story and how effective that style of art is at portraying the mood or whatever else it is that artist is trying to say with their particular art. For example, I posted on Twitter just the other day about my man, Mignola. I think his art is fantastic, especially with the colors as well, by Dave Stewart for the most part. I really, really enjoy his comic art. I think it's very effective in setting the right kind of tone, and not only that, but it also sets the setting for some kind of otherworldly fairy tale. And yeah, I love his art. But the reason why I pick Mignola is because I'm not sure of any other artist that has so many, varying opinions. I know a lot of people that think his art is meh or absolutely trash, and it shocks me because I look at it and I want to keep looking at it, and I always wonder about his decisions. Why did he make the light source where it is? Why does he do such big blacks? Why are the colors so flat, I guess, and contrasty? It's so interesting to look at. I think it's fascinating art, but a lot of people do not like his art whatsoever. And that just shocks me. But that goes to tell you that art is indeed a lot about taste. That's the beautiful thing about indie comics, though, is you can have a variety of art that can be effective in other ways. You might recognize some of this nightmare-inducing art. This is from H.R. Giger. He was already doing really creepy stuff before he got the job of doing the art for the Alien franchise. And in fact, this is a great example of basically bending the look of a movie, of a commercial art form, around an artist that already has this really unique style. Alien would not be what it is if it wasn't for H.R. Giger and his really extremely weird and kind of disgusting artwork. So even though this artwork makes you want to take a step back because it's so funky looking, I've got to ask you the question, is it good artwork? Is he achieving what it is that he's achieving? Which is probably to kind of gross you out and maybe strangely arouse you. With comic art, a lot of the guesswork has already been done. You know essentially what it is that artist is trying to do, and you can tell a lot by the lines, or at least I can. I look at the line work, and sometimes I'm amazed at how steady and even line art can be and how detailed it can be. This is a piece from Ethan Van Sciver, who's known for doing extremely detailed artwork. Things can also move to a separate end of the spectrum that, personally, this is not my favorite, but this is Alex Ross. He does paintings. They're really in-depth. They're very realistic looking, and I think that's what I don't like about them, is that they're so realistic looking. It's the difference, I guess, at that point between a photograph or comic book art. And trust me, I know a lot of people will disagree very adamantly, because Alex Ross is, he's a famous comic book artist, a cover artist, and, people love his work. It sells. If we go to another end of the spectrum, this is some art by Narwhal, and I would say he's very, very simplified, so much so that is kind of his thing. That's the main thing that sticks out. And when I look at his art, to me, I see that it is more about the entirety of the art rather than any single image or panel. The artwork itself is the motion and the fastness at which you move from panel to panel, because it's so simple and there's not a lot going on as far as the detail goes in the line art. So is it good art? Is it bad art? Again, those questions from the fancy British guy are, what is it trying to say? Is it saying something? And how effective is it at saying that something? J. Scott Campbell is at another place in this spectrum. And so far, I've been going over artists that a lot of people like, in varying degrees and all over comicdom, if that's a word. But J. Scott Campbell has a very recognizable style. It's very stylistic. It is not realistic. I'm not going to say that it's easy or fast to work in his art style. In fact, I'm not even sure how long it would take, but it's definitely its own thing. Again, it's all in the eye of the beholder. But wait, I stand corrected. This is Greg Land's work. He's really known for tracing some of the most stiff and weird and sometimes very, very weird kinds of art. And I don't know, there's something about tracing, like, yeah, it does something, it meets a deadline. And I think this is where you go from that art and commercial spectrum. And if you're just trying to get something done on time, and the best way to do that is to trace or just take photographs of that something, then you're moving so far to the commercial side of just getting it done so you can get a paycheck and really leaving out the art. And after all, I mean, isn't that the reason why people are drawn to comics? Because you get stylized artwork. And then there's also people like Phil Noto, who has a very non-traditional comic art style. This are some of his illustrations, and really I just bring Phil Noto up because I want to be his friend really badly. He's just good at what he does. And once you start taking style into account, you can see how style is passed on from person to person. You start seeing different groups or different companies even that use very specific kinds of styles. This is an image that's done by Marcelo Frozen, who is an Argentinian professional comic book artist who's done work for Image and I think DC and a few other places. And he also teaches comics. And when I look at his artwork, I do see a lot of similarities between what he's doing and what my own artist Mattias Lazaro is doing, and that's because he is his teacher, and they're kind of developing this really interesting style. I don't know if it originates in Argentina or if it's a Marcelo Frozen thing. I'm not sure, but it's kind of cool. So as a comic book writer, when I'm working with a comic artist, it's interesting because I'm not just setting them loose. You don't just say, hey, do art. Essentially, you're giving them their motivation. You're telling them what it is that art is supposed to say. They might add additional things that art is going to say, but essentially you got to have some things that you're conveying to a reader, because that is the purpose of this commercial art. So for example, this particular piece that is featuring a lab rat, this was done by Mattias Lazaro. Yes, he's the brother of Mattias Lazaro, so it's really cool to have him do this piece for the Secret History of Strata. And I asked him to do a mouse that is transforming, that has been tested upon. I wanted this to take place in the 1970s, so perhaps things could look a little bit grainy. But beyond that, I really just wanted to show some kind of a documentary feel, and there was some passage over time. And so this is how he chose to do that. I gave him a lot of leeway outside of that, and I think he did a really great job of conveying those kinds of things. He also did a good job of conveying a very creepy feel, especially with the coloring, with the greenness that you see everywhere. That definitely reflects some kind of sickliness that is conveyed in the colors. And, a little bit of horror perhaps too. So between the two of us, we were able to say a lot with that art, and it was within his style. So when people ask, how do I choose a comic artist that's right for my project? A lot of it's going to have to do with budget. Remember, this is also a commercial endeavor, but it is art as well. And so there's going to be some kind of negotiations. And I think that's the fun part of actually making comics, is you're trying to figure out something that works with your creative team. And with all the variety of styles and interesting, like humanness, like frailty that is in art, it is not perfection, and that is what is so appealing about it. If I wanted to see, perfect looking people, I could just watch a movie instead, or look at photography instead. There's something about having stylized artwork that makes comics incredibly special. So let me know what you think about this video for one, and what kinds of comic art do you like the best? What styles do you like? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't backed Downcast Rise and Fall, we are running out of time. There's only 9 days left, so I would check it out in the link in the description below. Please do back it. That'll help us out. and, we'll reach for the moon. Thanks very much, and I will see you next time.
It may be about the color orange. It may be about the view in a landscape. It may